theyeshiva.net.
Plus Elul had 29 days. In other words, you got to go back a day Yudalit. We're assuming that the only suffix is Rosh Elul. Did it have 29 days or 30 days? If it had 29 days, then you say Sunday, for example, is the first day of Sukkot. If it had 30 days, yeah? So Elul had an extra day, so Monday is the first day of Sukkot. I got that. But I have another problem. What if you assumed that Av had 30 days? So therefore, you gave Av 30 days. You started Rosh Chodesh Elul on day 31. Now you have a suffix. What happened with Elul? Is it 29 or 30? So therefore you do Tesvav or Tezayin. What happens if Av is also 29? If Av is also 29, so now what are you missing? So Rosh Chodesh Elul started a day early. So your 30 of Elul that you turned into Aleph Tishrei is already what? Is Beis. Is already Beis. Everything has to be a day earlier. So now Yudalit Nisan you should make a Seder. The night, right, of Yudalit Nisan, that should be your Seder already. It's not only a Chash of Tesvav and Tezayin. And the same is true with Nisan. There was 29, and what if Shvat was also 29? And of course the question could go the other way. What if the months were 30, and therefore your Yom Tov should be Yud Zayin? Your Yom Tov should be Yud Zayin? Maybe you're 2 days off.
How come we don't know Av? You have a month to know.
Okay, let's see the answer. Zok Rashi. L'meimar de chamisa v'sheitzer. B'nechusa. The Gemarah is not asking, the Gemarah is saying, Keloi mashminu Reb Nachman hachi. This is what Reb Nachman is obviously saying. The Gemarah didn't have a doubt that that's what he's saying. The question thus is, Dilma chasru la'av. Maybe Av had 29. V'nimtza, Yom Esrim v'tisha be'elul shalanu. Our 29 Elul, she'ibarnu es Av, we made Av pregnant. We made Av in Bavel. We decided it was 30 days. So therefore, our 29 Elul, haya yom shloishim shalahan. V'kava by Rosh Hashanah. What we thought was 29 Elul was really 30 Elul with Rosh Hashanah. Because we started Elul a day later. So 29 is still 29. And 30 is Rosh Hashanah. But really, 29 is not 29. 29 of Elul is 30 of Elul. You know why? Because it started a day early. The same problem with Yav Nissen. Maybe Shvat is 29 days, just like Adar is 29 days. So what you're calling 29 Adar is really for them 30 Adar. It's Rosh Chodesh Nissen, so Pesach should start a day early, Sukkot should start a day early. In other words, you have a doubt? Fine. Why are you going one way? Why aren't you going another way?
But is it possible that the month where they wouldn't know by the time they were...
That's the question. That's the question. How did it work here? How is the doubts working? So the Gemarah says a klal. Today, Yarche Chaseira Kala Islo. If there's 2 months consecutively missing, meaning 2 months of 29 days, Kala Islo. It has a rumor that traveled even to remote regions where Shluchim did not arrive on time before Yom Tif. It arrived, the news arrived to them. So you never have a question about more than 2 days. Literally, how would it seem to interpret? How would we think to interpret this Gemarah? There's enough time. Shluchim arrived at some point. Rumors arrived at some point. When Shvat, when the end of Shvat was what happened. So you're never going to run a doubt for more than a month. What happened with Adar? I don't know. It could have had 29 days. It could have had 30 days. My shluchim did not arrive to my region in Babylonia to tell me, and therefore I have a suffix of 2 days. If it was 29 days, then this is Tesvav Nisan. If it was 30 days, Tesvav Nisan is really Yudalid, and what I'm calling Tezayin is really Tesvav. Good. The same I do with the end of Pesach. Either Acharon Shal Pesach is really Isru Chag, Pesach only has 7 days, or Pesach started a day later, and the first day of Pesach was really Erev Pesach, right? And the last day of Pesach is really only the 7th day, and after push off Pesach a day. I'm done. I'm clear. Do I have a suffix if you Daled Nisan? My Daled Nisan, I also have to make Pesach? I don't. You know why? Because it doesn't take more than 2 months for Shluchim to arrive anywhere. Remember, they're not here dealing with a community in New Zealand that we're dealing today with. And today we have other technology, so it works. And we have a calendar. They're dealing with places where it didn't take more than 2 months. So by the time Nisan came, even though there was a suffix by Shvat, but you have the whole Adar, plus you have half of Nisan, right? It's a month and a half. People already found out what happened with Shvat. So if Shvat would have been 29, even if Adar would have been 29, they would have already known what Shvat is. So therefore they would know Yudalit Nisan becomes the new Tesvav Nisan. I don't know, fine. So it's a suffix, Yudalit Tesvav, not Tezayin. But to have a suffix of 3 days, you never had that issue. Why? Anywhere. Why? Because by the time 2 months passed, you already had it. You already figured it out. So this is a very important fact the Gemarah is telling us, how the Cheshbon is. It wasn't Stam, they chose randomly a suffix. The only suffix existing was between Tesvav and Tezai. There was no other suffix. And therefore there's no need to make Yom Tov 3 days. Stam, there's absolutely no need for it. But Rashi, interesting here, says a psah, you're learning the Gemarah, that's how you would teach the Gemarah. Once it's 2 months, colors, the Gemarah says, you would think the Gemarah should say, once it's 2 months, there's enough time for the call to come. The Gemara's lashon is Tzrei Yarchi Chaseire Kol Islam. So Rashi sees in the Gemarah it's another kvetch. Zok Rashi. Tzrei Yarchi Chaseire Kol Islam. The Tevis Chisru Memanavshach. Tevis, they always try to make 29 days. Keseder Halavana Be'echad Mali Ve'echad Chaser. The real order of the moon, right, is 1 month needs to be 30, 1 month needs to be 29. Because as we explained many times, the orbit of the moon is completed after 12 and a half days and change. 29 days plus 12 hours plus, right? Usually it's called Chavtes, Yud Beis, Tavshin Sad Gimel. 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 halakim, which happens to be 44 minutes and 3 seconds and a third of a second. So you don't have your 29 or 30 days. You have 29 and a half days. So the ideal cheshbon is to make one Rosh Chodesh day 30 and one Rosh Chodesh day 31. Sometimes you have a month 29 days, and really your Rosh Chodesh is earlier those months. Why? Because the orbit of the moon is another 12 hours, really. So you started it earlier. And then another 6 months, you start Rosh Chodesh later. You start on Rosh Chodesh day 31, and really you're postponing it. But more or less, you keep it balanced. So that's the ideal situation. Echad malei ve'echad chas. Ve'im is, and therefore, Tevis, according to this cheshbon.
They can do what they want.
So Tevis is supposed to be, according to this cheshbon, it's supposed to be ideally 29. Yeah, because you go full missing. So he says, Tevis chisru mimanav shech keseder alavana mechad malei ve'echad chas. Ve'im misa the chisru l'shvat. If Shvat was also 29, kvar yotza hakol lefnei Pesach. The rumor came everywhere before Pesach. Uba atzleinu, it came to us. Af l'makom shein shluchim bezin shel Nisan magin. Although our shluchim of Nisan didn't arrive yet, which is why we don't know when the first day of Pesach is, because we don't know when Rosh Chodesh Nisan was, but we don't have a question what happened a month and a half ago. Rosh Chodesh Adar. V'chein b'tishrei im chisru Tammuz v'av. If what happened was that they happened to make Tammuz 29 and of 29, and therefore Rosh Chodesh Elul is a day earlier, and therefore Sukkot is starting Yud Daled, not Tesvav, we would have known Sharei Tammuz Tamid Chaser. Tamid, according to this cheshbon, is always supposed to be Chaser, because you have Nisan and Iyar, Sivan and Tammuz, right? So if you have Nisan Chaser, Nisan Molei, so then Iyar becomes Chaser, and then Sivan Malay and Tammuz Chaser. That was Rashi's cheshbon. You start off with Malay Chaser, and therefore they would have already known by Tishrei what was the status of Av. So Takif Av had 29 days, yeah, and then they assume Elul had 29 days. You're right. Their Yudalid would be Tesvav. They wouldn't have a question. It wouldn't have been Yudalid because they would have known what happened in Av, and therefore it's only a question about Tesvav to Zion. Here's an important ha'ara. We're not talking about the calendar here. We're talking about the time when they were Mekadesh the Chodesh based on Eidos. Yeah? If so, you can have 2 months Chaser, 2 months Malay, 3 months Chaser. In our calendar, it's a system. Echad Malay, Echad Chaser, Echad Malay, Echad Chaser.
It's a system there too. They had to make up the time.
Right. So
they could force the system. They could manipulate.
Rashi says as with Pshittus, that Tammuz was always Chaser, and Shvat was always and Tammuz was always Chaser, and Tevis was always Chaser, and therefore Shvat it had to be Malay, and Av had to be Malay, and if not, it's so strange that you have a Koil. Yeah? What if it's so strange? What if Eidos come? What if Eidos come?
You send them on. You know, I'm going to say it, you tell them whatever you want to tell them.
So in other words, the pshat is that even when it was Kiddush HaKadoshim Al Pi Re'iyah, Bezdin was very careful, right, to try to keep it according to the reality of mathematical cheshbonis. So even though it didn't have to be mukhrach that it's going to be as perfect as us, one off, one on, one off, one on, but nonetheless, Rashi is not saying it was always like this. But they tried to maintain a system where it would be consistent with the orbit, which hopefully it was consistent because that's when the Eidos would also see their moon. In other words, if it was too early, they wouldn't see it. If it was too late already, right? And then Rosh Chodesh was pushed off. So B'meila, generally speaking, they tried to keep to this system and work it out with the Eidos.
To work out the other ways, and a life where it was clear to everybody.
Right. Right.
Everything else.
So therefore, generally, they can assume this, but you still can have exceptions because it's Taka Kiddush Chadoshim Al Pi Re'iyah. That's why you need shluchim. Okay, but it's an interesting ha'ara. The Merkavas HaMishnah, it's a pirush on the Rambam. He makes a big studim. He says, doesn't know how Rashi says this. How does Rashi get away with this? So it's Kiddush HaKadoshim Al Pi Re'iyah. Whoever heard of a system? It's not the shit of Reb Meir that it's system.
I'm going to say, what is Al Pi Re'iyah is very nice. Unless it's medicine kishikah, they did what they wanted.
Okay.
What does he do with those Gemarahs?
No, it sounds from Rashi like that it was a psah. The Tevis was always 29, and Tammuz was always 29.
That's the way they did it. That's the way they forced it.
Okay, that's a chiddush. It's a chiddush.
What's a chiddush that your vegetables should be fresh, that we should change the whole seder oil.
Zog the Gemarah. So therefore, this becomes a yisoid lahalacha that when we in our calendar today we make 2 days Yom Tov, not because we don't know when Yom Tov is, we have a calendar, but mitzad minig aveseinu biyadenu, we never make 3 days Yom Tov. Why? Because they never made 3 days Yom Tov. Why? Because their Yudalad Nisan was never a Suffolk Yom Tov, their Yudalad Tishri was never a Suffolk Yom Tov. It was always a Suffolk between one day and the other day, it never extends longer, the Suffolk. Zog the Gemarah tells a fascinating story, quite a story. Levi ikla lebavel bechatze b'tishrei. Levi lived in Eretz Yisrael. He's one of the Amirayim. He arrives in Bavel on what they are calling the 11th day of Tishrei. It says here 11 Tishrei, but you have to insert these words. They're calling it 11 Tishrei. In other words, the day after Yom Kippur. Amar.
Why doesn't he have any title?
Levi?
Was so famous, like
Because we didn't have smicha, ish mepiyish. I don't know. Amar, he said to them, listen how he expresses it. Basim tavshila de bavloi, b'yomer rabba de ma'arava. The dish of the people of Bavel is geschmack. It's delicious. On which day? On the great day in the west. Yom Kippur he calls Yom Rabbah, the awesome day, the great day. Yom HaGadol VaHaKadosh. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is west from Bavel. Bavel is Iraq, it's east. So he says, the dish of the people of Bavel is delicious when? On the great day of Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, you're busy eating on Yom Kippur. It's 11 of Tishrei, you're having a wonderful meal, you should just know that this is Yom Kippur. It was his way of saying you got your calendar off because you assumed Elul was 29 days. So you started Rosh Hashanah on day 30 and Yom Kippur is the 10th day of Tishrei. It happens to be that Elul was not 29, Elul was 30. So everything started a day later. So your Aleph Tishrei is really in Eretz Yisrael, Yud Tishrei, because Rosh Hashanah started a day later. Aleph Tishrei was not Monday, say it was Tuesday.
He came there on the 11th. How long did it take to get from Eretz Yisrael? Where was he traveling?
So you say the Shluchim didn't arrive.
Right.
The Shluchim didn't arrive, but he arrived.
Right.
Right? So he announces, basically, it's Yom Kippur today. You're eating on Yom Kippur. Not just you're eating, you have a delicious dish on Yom Kippur. Amri Lei, they tell him, Asid, Zagedus, testify to us that this is the truth. Elul had 30 days. In other words, and therefore, today is Yom Kippur. And of course, what that would mean we're not eating anymore. We're going to fast. We'll throw out the food. We fasted yesterday. We'll fast again. Amaluhu, he says, no. Lo shamatim mipi Bezdin mekudesh. I did not hear from Bezdin the word mekudesh. I know that they made it Rosh Chodesh. The day later was Rosh Chodesh. But I did not hear from them the word mekudesh, that the day is holy. And therefore, I'm not going to say Eidos for you.
So the Shluchim have to have heard from Bezdin mekudesh.
In other words, he could leave earlier because he left before they said mekudesh. What does this mean? So Rashi says, let's see Rashi. Basim tafshila de bavloi. Basim means like delicious, geschmack, delightful. Yeah. Ichlu lechem lema'adanim b'yom ha'kippurim sheberetz Yisrael. Achlu, not ichlu. Achlu, they ate bread, delicious bread, on Yom Kippur in Eretz Yisrael. Shadei Bezdin ibru es hachodesh. Bezdin really made the month of Elul 30 days. V'hayu misanim. And therefore, that was the day that they fasted in Eretz Yisrael. The Rashash's goydes here, not v'hayu, but v'hayoy misanim. It's a little better. And I see it's brought that in the Tfus, Tfus Yashan, in an old print of Rashi, Taka says not v'hayu, but there's missing a shlosmem. V'hayoy misanim. Today they're fasting. Asid, say Eidos, u'nekabel aleinu, we'll accept it on us, v'loy noichel. We won't eat. We'll extend our fast another day. So Levi said, no. It looks like they're in the middle of eating because he's speaking about the dish. He's like,
so then they say, okay, even if they said you're right,
we're gonna have to quit.
What do we do now?
We have to quit eating.
Stop eating. Okay, stop eating. Put up the kittel. Go to shul.
I guess so. Lo shamatem mipi Bezdin mekudesh. Lo oyed lachem. I will not testify. Why? And we're going to learn later in the Perek Chaf Aleph Amud Beis al kulon shluchim yotzim be'erev. For all months, when do shluchim go out? They can already go out by night. They can leave at night, because that way they get an extra night of traveling. It's an extra 12 hours of traveling, so Jews hear the news. Let's say Bezdin did not make Rosh Chodesh on day 30. Why? Eidos didn't come. It's now sunset. Nothing is going to happen throughout the night. We know that, because it's already the day passed. So what do they have to wait till tomorrow when Bezdin says Mekudesh to go let everybody know that the month had 30 days? Go already out at night. Because you know what's going to happen, even though they didn't make tomorrow Rosh Chodesh, but you know they're making tomorrow Rosh Chodesh. They didn't make today. Nisan and Tishrei is an exception. Even though you know for sure that tomorrow is going to be Rosh Chodesh, day 31, you don't leave. You know why? You should leave. What's the problem? You're not making Rosh Hashanah on day 32. If it's not day 30, it's day 31. So day 30 at night, what's going to happen? Tomorrow is for sure going to be Rosh Hashanah. So go out with a certainty and be mefarsim in the whole world, wherever you arrive, that Rosh Hashanah was day 31, not day 30. You don't do that.
It doesn't say why.
No.
Why those 2 months?
Right.
Even though it's 100%.
You would want to do it.
L'chayre, you would want these 2 months more than other months, because then you'll have Jews who will get an opportunity to know. They have to wait till tomorrow, when they hear from the mouth of Bezdin, Mekudesh, 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 today is Rosh Hashanah, or today is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and then they're allowed to go out. Me, Levi, I never heard this. I was not in the place where Sanhedrin was, so therefore I did not hear this from them, and therefore I'm not going to say Eidos for you. And therefore, I guess you guys can continue your meal.
I'm going to say Eidos that it wasn't on the 29th, on the 30th day. That I'm saying Eidos.
That 30 was not day one.
Not day one.
It was pushed off,
that I can say Eidos about. But I can't say Eidos is Rosh Chodesh. Why do you need it? Probably, I'm guessing, those 2 months you need it because maybe best in someplace else. I don't know. How many Makamis were there Sanhedrin? Maybe there was more than one option. And it could be somebody else did it, so I don't want to say this. Those, every other one doesn't make a difference. Except Tammuz maybe makes a difference.
If he knew
right
that what he would say would not have any consequences for them, why did he say it?
Right. So here we have to understand a few things.
What was your question?
He knew that what he would say wouldn't have any consequences for them.
Why did he bother them? Why did he bother them? First of all, let's understand the svara.
He was Jewish.
What's taka the Indian that the shluchim shouldn't go out at night? Isn't it much better? Send them at night. The answer for this, Tosfos says this on the Chafala from the base on the bottom. The reason is because of another reason. What used to happen often is, let's say it's day 29 at night, and everybody sees a moon. Everybody, a lot of people see a moon everywhere. Okay, it's a visible moon, not to two people, to hundreds of thousands of Jews living in Yerushalayim. Okay, I'm a man living in Yerushalayim. I look out, I see a moon. There's no question by me that if I saw it, another 500,000 people saw it. And between all these 500,000 people, Bezdin will be able to find two Yidden who are going to say they saw the moon. So it's not a question by me that tonight is going to be Rosh Chodesh. And therefore, what do? I leave. All right, I have children in Bavel, and I say, Rabbi YY, I come to Bavel, I get a whole extra night. I leave and I travel, and I say when Pesach is, when Tishrei is, when everybody is. Chazal did not want that. Why? Because you don't know. You don't know. There could be a whole... remember, we have back to Sod HaIbur, right, that we keep on mentioning, that you do not know for sure. It's likely that it's going to be Rosh Chodesh, but you never know for sure. Bezdin may have certain calculations, could be astronomically, could be socially, usually both together.
Not if everybody saw it.
Huh?
Once it's closed, not if everybody saw it, then it's Yeshikra, and they don't change anything. And everybody knows which way the pointing.
That was one shitta. That was one shitta that we learned. No, you're right. That was one shitta. That they will never do that. Right?
If they didn't say, when they don't see it, I hear that.
Right. No, so that was one shitta. They'll never do that if they saw. Right? They'll never do it. But that's one. Others hold differently. But there could be a Metzias. And because there's such a Metzias, so they said, wait. Just wait. So therefore they never wanted them to go out. But Medvarim Amurim, Nisan and Tishrei. Because Nisan and Tishrei, there could be a Kilkal HaMayadis. The Yom Tovim could be wrong Yom Tovim. So therefore they had to wait. That's all if they're going out night 30. Here, L'cha'oira, they're going out night 31. Here there's no chashash, because what is Bezdin going to do? Bezdin is not doing a day 32, right? So for sure they're doing day 31. So Tosfos explains that these 2 months, they just wanted to tell people, don't leave at night. Because once people are leaving at night 31, they'll also leave the night before. They said, don't leave at night by these 2 months. So therefore, that musik did not exist to leave at night by these 2 months. You have to hear from Bezdin Mekudesh. Levi says, I never heard from Bezdin Mekudesh, and therefore, I cannot say Eidus, and because I cannot say Eidus, it's worthless. Let's see here Tosfos, who asks a lot of these questions on this sugya about what happened. Take a look. Levi ikla lebavel, b'chatze b'tishrei. And it'll address quite a few of the questions that were raised. Question number 1. What's bothering Tosfos is, what do you mean he arrived 11 Tishrei? He said it's Yom Kippur. So he traveled on Yom Kippur? You can't travel on Yom Kippur. Well, that's the question number 1. He says it's Yom Kippur, yeah? That's why he's protesting the food. Zok Tosfos, Achad Asar Haya L'Bnei Bavel. The story is when it says Yud Aleph, it was only Yud Aleph for Bnei Bavel. Asiri L'Bnei Eretz Yisrael Dibru L'Elul. They made Elul 30 days. Zok Tosfos Mitoichat Chumba. You have to say that before the day he was already inside the Tchum, and therefore he could travel on Yom Kippur. Why? Because Yom Kippur, just like Shabbos, you can't walk outside of the Tchum Shabbos or Tchum Yom Kippur, but he was already in the Tchum, even though he had to walk, he was already in the city, in the environment, in the realm of the city, so he could Yom Kippur have. For him it was Yom Kippur. Inami, you could say differently. He was traveling on their Yom Kippur, which is Yud, which for him was really Tes Tishrei, and he arrived right before dark. So when it says he came 11 Tishrei, it means he came on the onset of 11 Tishrei. He came Motzai Yud, in the beginning of Yud Aleph, right before Ne'ilah time by them, which for him is Sudah HaMafseka's time. He arrived. He's allowed to travel out of Yom Kippur. It's not a problem. He arrives for their 11 Tishrei, which is for him the beginning of Yom Kippur. So Tosfos gave two answers how the man traveled on Yom Kippur. For who are you out of Yom Kippur? B'nai Eretz Yisrael. For B'nai Eretz Yisrael, it was out of Yom Kippur. He's allowed to travel. V'amrulei, they told him, Asidlon, why don't you testify to us that it's Tes Tishrei? It's the beginning of Yom Kippur. Kiloymar v'neser lechel gam ata Yom Kippurim, and therefore we will fast for 2 days. We already finished fasting, remember, right? Now it's the end of Ne'ilah.
How does he touch up the...
They're going home. He says, tell us it's Yom Kippur now, and we won't eat another day.
Where did he see all this delicious food?
I guess the Mitzvah Yom Kippur he saw.
That's not Mitzvah Yom
You
Kippur.
mean according to this interpretation, there was no food yet? There was no food. Huh? He went into the kitchen.
Kiddush class.
How, isn't it a very long distance from Eretz Yisrael to Babel?
Yes.
So how could you reach within the Tchum?
He was within the Tchum.
It's already...
No, he was already traveling
days.
for 9 days. He traveled for 9 days.
He left.
And he left at night.
Right.
He left before the Eidos.
Just get here, but that's much.
V'neser lechel gam ata Yom Kippurim. Amala, and he tells them, Lo shamatim if bezin mekudesh sheyatze b'yom lamed shel Elul samach lechashech. He went out on the 30th of Elul right after nightfall, right after Shkia. Shelo hayashuz b'yom lavi lekabel edusam. There was no time to accept Eidos. V'yadash shelo yekatshu ad lemacha b'yom lamed aleph. He knew they can't make Rosh Chodesh till the next day. He did not wait till tomorrow to hear explicitly from Bezna they made it holy. For the 2 months Nisan and Tishrei, you don't have the authority to testify that this is Rosh Chodesh until you did not hear it from Bezdin, and therefore he did not have the authority as an aid to testify, and because of that, he could not testify, and therefore they were not responsible for his statement. So even though he fasted on the next day, they didn't have to fast the next day. They could continue with their meal or start their meal.
If he's wrong, it's a big problem.
Huh? Rashi says it a little different. Rashi says that Levi said, Lo hayisi b'makam sheyashvu Sanhedrin sham. I wasn't there. Tosfos says, not that I wasn't there, he may have been there, but he didn't hear it because he left too early. He left at night. Rashi doesn't learn that. Rashi learns that Lo hayisi b'makam Sanhedrin yashvu sham. In other words, the problem is, Rashi believes that you have to hear it directly from the Sanhedrin. It's not enough. You have to hear it directly from the Sanhedrin. But here we come to another question. Okay, he's not an aid. Fine, no problem. How can he let them eat? It's Yom Kippur of the Welt. You're a Jew. They're eating on Yom Kippur. Tosfos says it's not a Suffolk Issachadis, it's a Vadai Issachadis. It's a Jew in Bavel eating on Yom Kippur. To eat on Yom Kippur is a penalty of premature death. Now Tosfos doesn't mean they're going to be Mechuyev Kares, call it a Shoigig, but the point is it's an Issur Kares. It's a very serious Issur. So you're telling me he wasn't allowed, he wasn't supposed to leave at night, he's not a Gedder of Shluchei Bez, Zol Zayin Azoi, but the man knows the truth. The man knows the truth. Why? Because he left night after 30. Rosh Chodesh was not a day before. He knows it. It's not a Suffolk 50%, 80%, 95%. It's 100%. So they say, I don't understand. Say Eidos, don't say Eidos. They all hear from this Jew when Rosh Chodesh Tishrei was. How could they eat on Yom Kippur? How could he let them do it? A very big question. This is a starker shayla. V'yesh Shloimar. So Tosfos says a big chiddush here. What's the chiddush? Tosfos answers, Hatanan lekam b'Perek Sheni. We have a Mishnah soon in Perek Sheni of Rosh Hashanah. Asher tikru oisam mikroi kodesh bein bizmanon bein shaloi bizmanon. Yeah, Daf Chafei. Rabbi Akiva's limud, it says, Eilam moya de Hashem mikroi kodesh asher tikru oisam b'moyadam. We had it in Parshas Emer. It says in the Parsha 3 times, Tikru oisam. These are the holidays that you will declare. You. Who's you? Bezdin will declare, Asher Tikru oisam. Literally it says oisam. There's no nekudas in a Sefer Torah. You can always read it also as atem. Oisam means them. Atem means you. Asher Tikru oisam mikroi kodesh v'amrina b'Gemarah. The Gemarah teaches oisam could be translated, could be pronounced as atem, meaning afilu shoygegim. Atem afilu shoygegim. You, whenever you make Yom Tov, it's Yom Tov, even if you make a mistake. Let's say you make a mistake in your astronomical calculations. You make a mistake with Eidus, it's still Yom Tov. Atem afilu mizidim. Mizidim means even if you're willingly making Rosh Chodesh a different day. Willingly doesn't mean because you want to be a Rosh, then you're not Sanhedrin. If you want to be a Rosh and you don't care about Torah, then I don't have to listen because it's not Sanhedrin. Mizidim means they feel it's the right thing to do. They know it's not officially the day Rosh Chodesh, but they're making a cheshbon that you have to do it. Or Mutayin. Mutayin means Pashtatos, they made a mistake. So what? It's still Rosh Chodesh. It's still considered Rosh Chodesh. The same God who said that you make Rosh Chodesh when the orbit of the moon finishes, the same Rebbeinu Shalom says that if the real Bezdin decided a day is Rosh Chodesh, even though it was based on an error, and if they would have known certain information, they would have said, whoops, you're right, but it still has a gather of Rosh Chodesh, and therefore Pesach is Pesach, Sukkot is Sukkot, Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur. So Tosfos is applying this Gemarah to the people in Bavel, to the local Jewish community. That Levi actually didn't have a responsibility. It wasn't there was no Issacharius. Why? Since they made Elul 29 days, because in the majority of cases, Elul had 29 days. We learned before that from Ezra till the era of Rav, there was never an Elul that had 30 days. Levi was after that. So Levi said this Elul happened to have 30 days. Even though Levi is right, nobody's doubting that Levi was wrong. But since they assumed Elul was 29 days, and they had a Torah right to assume it, so therefore their Yom Kippur is 10 of Tishrei, and Tosfos says, it's fine. Atam afilu shoygegin, atam afilu matayin, atam afilu mezidin. The chiddush is that Tosfos is taking a Gemarah that's talking about the Sanhedrin, and he's applying it to the Jews in Bavel, even though the Jews in Bavel are not the Sanhedrin. The Jews in Bavel are the communities in Bavel. He's applying the same principle, that if they accepted Yom Kippur as a particular day, al pi Torah, it works. It's a different Yom Kippur, and they don't have to eat. They don't have to fast on 11 Tishrei, even though 11 Tishrei is really Yom Kippur Night Yisrael, and therefore Levi did not have to tell them. It was fine. He said, I'm not an aid, and you don't have to eat for 2 days.
That's following the tzibur, obviously.
He had to fast the next day. He had to fast the next day. Huh?
If the person comes into a town, when he becomes Chayv in the
Right.
town.
Right.
Shavya Nafshi anyway, the whole,
Yeah.
he created it for himself.
He knows.
What about Sukkot now?
So, if it's mashma from Tosfos Hazai, if Levi was an aid, he was a shliach bezdin, this whole cheshbon wouldn't work. Put it this way: if Levi would have come, if the shluchim would come a day before Yom Kippur, right, and say, Elul is 30 days, and therefore Yom Kippur is a day later, they can't say, oh, atam afilu shayik. No, you have to follow Eretz Yisrael. You have shluchim. In a situation where they didn't have a shliach, nor could Levi be a shliach bezdin because he didn't have the authority to say edus. Even though it turns out they made a mistake, it's fine. But the evidence, it's fine. To go lechatchila, go different than Eretz Yisrael, they're not allowed to. If they would have had shluchim before, no. But Tosfos is applying the situation of atam afilu shayigin to foreign communities, and really this is one way of learning the Gemarah before. When Shmuel said, "Yechalni lekvaya lechol bnei goyla," daf chaf, I could make a calendar for everybody. You don't need edus.
No matter what.
No matter what. What was Shmuel saying? What do you mean? What? This is the time when they're mekadesh chadoshim al piyariyah. L'chayda, what Shmuel was saying is, according to this Tosfos, how would we learn pshat? Yes, we may be making a mistake, but you know what? And we may found out we made a mistake. Atam afilu shayigin, it works because he's applying the same idea of tikru atem. Not just on Bezdin, but literally on Klal Yisrael everywhere, if it's Ois Galten al Pitayra. I just want to say that the Ritva learns even starker than Tosfos. The Ritva learns it's not a din b'di'evet. The Ritva learns it's a din l'chatchila. The din l'chatchila is that in every place where shluchim do not arrive, if shluchim arrive. But at every place they know shluchim are not arriving, they have the authority of Torah to make Yom Tov whenever they feel Yom Tov should be made, min ha-Torah. In other words, Elul usually is 29 days. They could assume that this Elul was also 29 days, even though there may be exceptions. And therefore make Yom Tov when they're making. And that taka becomes Yom Tov. It's a gather of Yom Tov in these places because they don't have shluchim. It turns out later that it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It's not considered a tos. The Rabbanon said you should make 2 days Yom Tov. That's true. But min ha-Torah, you don't have to make 2 days Yom Tov. If you would theoretically be able to have a system, like Shmuel says, I'm going to make you a calendar. Anyway, Yom Kippur wasn't a geya because mitzad the danger of fasting 2 days, the Chazal never said that Yom Kippur has to be 2 days. So that's why Yom Kippur, you go back to the original halacha. The original halacha, he says, is that they can do it, it's fine. They could do it l'chatchila. It's not only a din b'di'evet, it's a din l'chatchila. And because of that, you could do your Yom Kippur, and Levi does not have to mix it.
What do they do if the Eidus come on between Yom Kippur and Sukkot? And they say, you were wrong. Are we switching Sukkot?
Oh, the Sfas Emes says that you can maybe touch the Gemarah. Tosfos doesn't say that. He says you can maybe touch the Gemarah that he came already afterwards.
After Yom Kippur?
He came after their Yom Kippur.
That's the...
He came after, and there was no issue b'chlal.
I'm thinking about food.
And he came with Tzayir Aleph Tishrei. There's no problem of Tchum. Or he came with Tzayir Aleph Tishrei, and
About when he left. If we're saying he wasn't in the
in other words, he came after his own Yom Kippur. No problem of Tchum. The issue was about Sukkos. The issue was about Sukkos. Testify, right, that Yom Kippur was pushed off a day later. Sukkos will be pushed off a day later. That would be his shitta. Testify, and he still wouldn't testify. So this would be a cheshbon. Like Tosfos would see that since the Bnei Bavel were already Mekadesh day 30 and they made it Rosh Chodesh and they fasted day 10, they could rely on Atam Afilu Shogig and Atam Afilu Mutayid, and they don't have to fast again. If Levi would have arrived before day 10, if Levi would have come before day 10, it sounds like from Tosfos, even though he didn't hear from Bezdin Mekudesh, but since it's before the Maisa, so you don't go with B'di'evet, then they would fast according to the Cheshbon of Eretz Yisrael. Once it happened, you say you had a Yom Kippur. You don't have to now do tshuva, you didn't have a Yom Kippur. You had a Yom Kippur. If Levi would have come earlier, even though he wasn't an official aide, you would have accepted him. Why? Because he's telling you the facts? Fine. He didn't come, but the evidence, it's fine. The Litzvatain is no. That fascinating halacha, he would say. Even if Levi came earlier than Yom Kippur, you wouldn't change it. Why? Because since Al Pi Torah, you're only relying on an aide who heard from Bezdin Mekudesh, so therefore they have to rely on their cheshbon, not on his. It's a very fascinating idea. He comes, he's screaming Chai v'Kayim. You're doing the wrong Yom Kippur. Tonight is not Yom Kippur, it's Erev Yom Kippur. Tomorrow night, like the Chazon Ish wrote in the telegram, Tzumu toichlu b'revi v'tzumu b'chamishi. That's what happened. Yeah. Levi Shreit. This is the truth. So what does he say? The Ritva says no. They say, listen, if you're a Shliach Bezdin, then we're bottled to you. If not, we follow our cheshbon. Our cheshbon is Elul is 29 days, and therefore, we're going to make Yom Kippur a day. Levi himself, who knows the truth about Eretz Yisrael, he can't rely on that. But they need an 8. So therefore, according to the Ritva, even if Levi came early, they don't have to be mavatal their minyan and fast, because it's a din l'chatchila that they can go according to their cheshbon. But from Tosfos it's not mashma like that. From Tosfos it's mashma like other Rishonim say that it's an inyan of b'di'evet of atam afilu shogigin. If we can finish the Tosfos, let's finish the Tosfos. It'll take a minute. Tosfos asks an interesting question. It's very clear. There's a Gemarah in Masechta Chulin, an interesting Gemarah. Fascinating story. A person does Malacha on Yom Kippur. It happens to be on Shabbos. Okay. He remembers it's Shabbos, but Shagag b'Yom Kippurim. He didn't remember it's Yom Kippur. Okay. So he's potter. The Gemarah says he's potter from a second carbon chatas. You would think he did two separate averas, right? Chilul Yom Kippur, Chilul Shabbos. He's potter from a chatas for Yom Kippur. For Shabbos, he's potter from a chatas. Why? Because it was amazing. He knew it was Shabbos, right? So he's potter from a chatas. There's no chatas only for a shayt, but he forgot it's Yom Kippur. So he says he's potter from a chatas. Why? So Gemarah says the Gzeira Hava. It was a time of a Gzeira. The Goyim made a decree that you're not allowed to do Yom Kippur. So therefore, Bezdin postponed Yom Kippur from its real day, and they made Yom Kippur another day. Yom Kippur dahi shata Shabbos. And that new day Yom Kippur, which wasn't really Yom Kippur, happened to be a Shabbos. That's why he's potter on Yom Kippur, because it's not really Yom Kippur. Bezdin manipulated Yom Kippur. Let's say Yom Kippur was supposed to be Tuesday. They made Yom Kippur Shabbos, right? Why? Because it was a Gzeira. You weren't allowed to make Yom Kippur. So they made a new Yom Kippur. So therefore, you're not chayiv on Yom Kippur. Isn't this a place? What? Atam afilu mezidin. They decided you have to make Yom Kippur a different day. They knew it's a mistake, but this is what they decided. And suddenly the Gemarah dismisses it. It's not really Yom Kippur. It's a joke. It's fine. You could do malacha. What's haste? So Tosfos says it's different. Hasam hukvalem achodesh bizmanai. There, it's not pshat. They made a mistake, or they were even amazed. Then Rosh Chodesh was already established in the right time. It was a good Rosh Chodesh. But Pnei HaGzeira, there was a Gzeira, Loi Osu Yom HaKippurim Ba'asiri, V'asu B'Yom HaShabbos Le'shlo Yishtakach. They postponed Yom Kippur. They knew when Asiri was. What happened was, they didn't make a real Yom Kippur. Jews couldn't observe Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is not Doiche Pikuach Nefesh. It's not one of the Avedas. If it's a chash of death, you're not allowed to do Yom Kippur. Yeah? Famous story with Reb Chaim Brisker, that once there was a schrecklich problem with food. There was a terrible hunger. So he paskined that nobody's allowed to fast on Yom Kippur, because he was afraid of the sakonas nefashos. Nobody's allowed to fast. Yeah. So somebody says that they asked Reb Chaim why he's being mekel in dinim of Yom Kippur. B'chlal he was a machmer. The Briskers, he was a tremendous, his Yir Shamayim was extraordinary, and he was very meticulous in halacha. Why are you being mekel azah? So Reb Chaim says, Ich bin nicht mekel in Yom Kippur, ich bin machmer in Pikuach Nefesh. I'm not being mekel in dinim of Yom Kippur, being machmer in dinim of Pikuach Nefesh. So therefore they said there's no Yom Kippur this year, but they didn't want the concept of Yom Kippur should be forgotten. So what they do? They did a chachma. They made Yom Kippur the next Shabbos, because Shabbos people are anyway not working. So the Goyim won't attribute the lack of work to Yom Kippur. They'll attribute it to Shabbos. So there won't be any sakonas nefashos involved. Azoi, Jews won't work on Shabbos, which became a semi-Yom Kippur, only shlo yishtakach. They didn't want that in Klal Yisrael the concept of Yom Kippur should be obliterated this year. But they knew when Yud is. So Tosfos says, Ve'ein Yom Kippurim ela ba'asara b'tishrei. There's no Yom Kippur Yudala Tishrei. That Bezdin doesn't do. They can make a zeiche for Yom Kippur Yudala Tishrei. Aval hacha lahem hoya asiri. It's different. In Bavel, this was Yud. In Eretz Yisrael it was Tes, but in Bavel it was Yud. That's Atam Afilu Mutayin. In the story of the Gemarah Masechta Chulin and Gida Nasha Chulin Kaf Aleph, it wasn't Yud. Yom Kippur was Yud Gimel. It's a whole different word. Therefore you can't compare. Don't compare it also to what the Gemarah says in Sanhedrin Yud Beis. Shabikish Chizkiya Rachmim al Atzmai. It says Chizkiya asked Hashem for compassion. The Ksiv, because the Pasuk says that what? Ki achlu ha-pesach b'loike kosov. What happened was, in the times of Chizkiya, they ate the Korban Pesach against Torah. Umefarish, what happened was, she'ibru Hashanah b'yem lamed shel Adar. Under Chizkiya's reign, they made a leap year on the 30th of Adar. The cutoff time to add a month is Chavtes Adar. You can add a month. Once it's Lamed already, you can't make Asur Asur. You're not allowed to make an Ibur year once it's Lamed. Hayil Uroyil Lekoivay Nissen. The last day to add another month is Chaf Tes Adar. The pasuk is HaChodesh Hazelachem Zen Nissen Ve'ein Acher Nissen. Once the potential Rosh Chodesh Nissen comes, you can't turn it into Adar. Chizkiah made a mistake. They made Lamed Adar. They decided this is going to be not Rosh Chodesh Nissen. It's going to be Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni. So therefore, Chizkiah was asking Rachamim for the sin that because of him they made the wrong Korban Pesach because he made this Adar Sheni. So Nissen was Ersht. Yeah, a month later. Pesach was a month and a half later because this became Rosh Chodesh Sheni, and he asked for kapara. He made a mistake. He made a mistake. Okay, it's a bezdin. It wasn't a today for bezdin. It's a real bezdin. So Tosfos says, "Mishum de loy shayich ella kegoin yom lamed or yom lamed aleph keshekoven beechad men Rosh Chodesh lechasrei la'abrei shaloi kedin or al pi eder sheker." Atam afilu shayigin works again. Rosh Chodesh is either day 30 or day 31. They make one of them Rosh Chodesh, and it wasn't halachically. Or they accepted witnesses who were false, and they made a mistake. The witnesses played a game with them. So they made a mistake, or they did it b'mezid, but they did it in one of these 2 days. Let's say Bezdin decides, you know what? Yom Lamed Gimel we're making Rosh Chodesh. You don't say Atem. There's no Atem. It has to work. They can't. Bezdin decides Shavuos is going to be Sukkos. They have an authority of Torah. They don't have authority unlimited. Atem afilu shaygin if you're working with the system of Torah. So Tosfos says the same thing here with Ibur Hashanah. L'chayra, this is Prat and Tosfos. Once you make Lamed Adar Sheni, it doesn't work. That system doesn't work. If they made a mistake according to the system of Torah, yeah, this was a different type of mistake. It wasn't a day that you could make Ibur Shana. So there's no din of Atem afilu shaygin. So that's why Chizkiah had to do tshuva. Okay. So we had this story that Levi came to Bavel. There was a Yud Aleph Tishrei, right, according to Bavel. And he tells them that they're eating, their dish is delicious. The only thing is that in Eretz Yisrael they're fasting today. In other words, they're off by a day. Rosh Chodesh of Tishrei was a day later than they thought. They made Elul 29 days. Really, Elul was 30 days. They followed what they knew best. The majority of years, Elul was 29 days. That's what they followed. It happened to be that year, the Sanhedrin in Eretz Yisrael decided that Elul needs to be 30 days, for whatever reason. Say there were no witnesses. And hence, he says, Yom Kippur is really Yud Aleph. What you're calling Yud Aleph is really Yud, because Aleph was a day later. They asked him to testify. And that would, of course, have radical consequences, because that means they would fast for 2 days instead of 1 day. But he said, no, I can't testify, because I myself did not hear from Bezdin Mekudesh. I know that day 31 was Rosh Chodesh. How did I know day 31 was Rosh Chodesh? Rashi says he wasn't in the area where the Sanhedrin said it, but he heard the news. The news traveled. Tosfos says it could be that he left immediately the night after 30. He left at night. He knew that 30 can't be Rosh Chodesh anymore because the day passed. It wasn't Rosh Chodesh. There were no witnesses. Bezdin didn't do anything. So automatically it's going to be pushed off to the next day. That wasn't a question. But he didn't wait. He left at night. Kiddush HaChodesh is by day, in the morning usually. Depends when the Eidos came. But if it's day 31, it could be the first thing in the morning. And therefore, he left and he could not hear from Bezdin Mekudesh. Here's the important clarification that we made. L'cha'oira, even if he's not accepted as a valid witness and an official shliach of Bezdin, because he didn't hear from the mouth of Bezdin, Mekudesh, and by Nisan and Tishrei they were very meticulous, that the people who spread the word need to hear it directly.
And Eid Echad is Neman?
And Eid Echad is Neman.
Okay.
Not in this case. Eid Echad is Neman here. Nonetheless, that's all good. But still, Levi wasn't inventing a story that he kratzt from Boidim, as they say. They knew Levi's not saying something not true. So he doesn't have a din of a authoritative shliach. But a fact is a fact. A fact is a fact. Is Yom Kippur, not Yom Kippur. So you're not an aid. Fine. But I know. I know that it's Yom Kippur because Levi is not saying a lie.
And
You're right, he didn't hear it from the Sanhedrin. He left the night before. But he knew when Yom Kippur is. And he himself is fasting. Of course he's fasting. He's not eating. He wasn't being a hypocrite, of course. You fasted, I'm eating. So that's the big question here. So generally, as we said, there's two mahalchim. One is the mahalach of Tosfos and the Rashba and the Ran. It's one mahalach, and one is the mahalach of the Ritva, which is even more extreme than Tosfos. The Ritva tainas that Levi couldn't testify at all. Why? Because the Chachamim made a takana, and it was a serious takana, that you do not rely on a witness who testifies when Rosh Chodesh is in Eretz Yisrael until he can testify that he heard from Bezdin the word Mekudesh. This day is holy, this day is Rosh Chodesh. And the Chachamim relied on this takana that they made. You make such a takana, that's a serious takana. They relied on this takana, on the halacha, that the people in exile, the Jews of the diaspora, have the right to establish their own months and their own holidays. It works. They have that right, which is why Shmuel could say earlier on Daf Chaf, I could make a whole calendar for everybody living outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, then he was challenged by the father of Reb Simlai that he doesn't know the Brais of Said HaIbur, but theoretically he says, even without witnesses, the Ritva says why? Because even if their calendar is going to be different than the calendar of Bnei Eretz Yisrael, the halacha gives them the authority to do it. As long as they did not hear from kosher Eidus the status in Eretz Yisrael. If they hear the status in Eretz Yisrael, then they can't make a separate Yom Tov. They're tafel, they're an extension of Eretz Yisrael. But if they can't, why? They're living too far for shluchim to come. These people in Bavel didn't have shluchim coming. That's why they didn't know when Yom Kippur is. Right? They didn't have shluchim by 10th of Tishrei. They lived too far. It happened to be that Levi made it. And when did Levi make it? According to the first version in Tosfos, he made it on Yom Kippur. He could have made it for Ne'ilah, right? He could have made it for the end of Yom Kippur. Or he made it in the beginning of Yom Kippur. But generally they didn't have shluchim arriving. So in this case, what's their opportunity? Their only opportunity is make your own Rosh Chodesh, your own Yom Tov, based on your own calculations to the best of your ability. Of course, you have to know what you're doing. You can't stop make Rosh Chodesh in the middle of Chanukah. But the point is that they can do it, and therefore, since this Eidus is not kosher, so they could tell Levi, we know when Yom Kippur is in Eretz Yisrael. It's fine. We have a different Yom Kippur. We have a different Yom Kippur. Quite a radical, quite intense, quite heavy, because he's not a kosher aid. Of course, if he would be a kosher aid, then he's a shliach of Bezdin. Then everything, then you have to go look with Eretz Yisrael. That's the mahalach of the Ritva, which he says clearly. Tosfos and the Rashba and the Ran mitigate this a little bit. They're not so. This is quite a radical interpretation. It's like officially 2 Yom Kippurs without an issue. Why? Because we don't have the shluchim, so we do the best we can.
Even if you have somebody to come from there.
If he's a kosher aid, yeah. If not.
He's a kosher, but
Since he doesn't have a gedder of an aid, they don't have to listen to him. We have a right to make our own Yom Kippur. You say it was a different Yom Kippur. Okay, we have 2 Yom Kippurs. Our Yom Kippur is a Yom Kippur. It would have been nice to have 1 Yom Kippur, but we don't. You're not a kosher aid.
What about Sukkot? They go
That's
back?
why they tell him, Asid, say Eidus. What were they saying, say Eidus? I said Eidus. I don't know. I told you that you're eating on Yom Kippur. What type of Eidus do you want me to do? You want me to go to the mikveh, put on a kapota? What do you want? I said Eidus. Yeah? Asid. In other words, it has to be a gedder of Eidus. It's not just information. Information we know. But we need you as an aid. Since Chachamim are not accepting you as an aid, so therefore we don't rely on you. The other interpretation, which Tosfos says Bekitzer, and the Rashba and the Ran say a little more barichus, is that this takana of the Chachamim, that they would not accept Eidus, who did not hear directly from Bezdin Mekudesh, they only made a takana after the people in exile already made a Yom Kippur according to their count. So b'di'eved, they say, once they did it already, it works. Just like Bezdin, who makes a mistake. We say it works. So we say it also about Jews who make a mistake, an innocent mistake. It works. That's the Chiddush of Torah. Atem afilu shoygegin works even with the Jewish communities following their own authorities of Torah. Once they made a mistake, we say retroactively, we don't call it a mistake. We call it a Yom Kippur. They already celebrated their Yom Kippur. It was a mistake. Emes. We're calling it a mistake. But they did it according to their innocent, to their conscience, to the best of their knowledge, and the best of their innocence. According to Torah, you go according to the majority of years. Achrei Rabbim lahatos. That's what they did. It wasn't malicious to do Hepech HaTorah. Of course not. They were trying to do the real Yom Kippur. So therefore, we say that what? It's done. Now Levi comes and says Eidus. Since
If he would have said Eidus,
right, now Levi comes, you don't have to accept it.
if he would have said Eidus, that would have made
Oh, but what? If he would have come before, if he would have come Erev Yom Kippur and not hear from Bezdin Mekudesh, we would still accept it. We would still accept it. We would say, let them do like Bnei Eretz Yisrael, even though he didn't hear from Bezdin Mekudesh. It's not, we're not completely rejecting this Eidus initially. It would have been a very thing where we would accept. Once they did it, but the Eved works.
And
We
it means
accept
that
it.
for Sukkah they change.
According to this, for Sukkahs they would change. Yeah, that would be the big nafkamin. Very good nafkamin. According to this second interpretation, for Sukkahs they would change because they know it's a mistake.
the extra day.
Yeah.
Very good. In other words, they would have two Erev Sukkahs, another day to build their Sukkah, right? Another day to look for an Esther. Sukkahs would be a day later, very geschmack. Even though it's not a Geder of Eidos, because it's before the
That's
Mass.
what he said.
The Turei Even adds that Levi wasn't Neman for Eidos because it's got Keneged Harayv. It's Eidos Keneged the majority. Meaning, since most years Elul is not it's not a leap year, so one aid is not believed to testify against the Roiv. Two aid is Trei Kameya. Two is like 1,000. That's what the Turei Even
Why
adds.
did they ask him to testify?
No, that's why he said not. They said, can you testify? He said no.
As an Eid Echad, it's a Trei Kameya, but it's an Eid Echad, he would have also Kameya.
Right.
Trei Kameya, but in this case, Eid Echad would also
Right.
be Kameya.
It's very weird that for 500 years they never had.
And then
you
they
don't
started
know
to
about-
have.
And then we already learned two. After the story, we have two on the same time. Two when the Jews
He's
were
saying
in
so
Babel.
many years they didn't have, and then they started to have.
It's weird.
Machriz Rabbi Yochanan.
A lot of years to catch up.
Rabbi Yochanan made an announcement. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the top, Chaf Aleph Amar Aleph. Machriz Rabbi Yochanan made an announcement. Kol Heiche Demotu, fascinating halacha. Kol Heiche Demotu Shluchei Nissen. Any place where the Shluchim of Nissen arrive on time to tell them when Rosh Chodesh Nissen was. V'loi Motu Shluchei Tishrei, but the Shluchim of Tishrei don't have a chance to arrive there. What would be the reason for this? Shluchei Nissen reached exactly more distant places than the Shluchim of Tishrei, because the Shluchim were not allowed to travel on Shabbos and Yom Tov. That was the premise. Therefore, Shluchei Nissen, they could already leave Rosh Chodesh Nissen. The moment they heard Mekudesh, boom, they were out. The moment they heard Mekudesh, if Bezdin announced Mekudesh 6 o'clock in the morning, they were out 6 o'clock in the morning. So they had a whole extra day of travel. They can also go every single day till Pesach, including Erev Pesach. The only time they have to stop is Shabbos. Yeah. And let's say Rosh Chodesh was on Shabbos, they didn't even lose that Shabbos. Right? If Rosh Chodesh was, they didn't lose an extra day. They lost that Shabbos, but they didn't lose an extra day. Shabbos, they couldn't travel. Mitzat Chum Shabbos, even if they were walking, they weren't taking public transportation. But Mitzat Chum Shabbos, you couldn't walk. That's that. When it comes to Tishrei, they couldn't go Shabbos. They couldn't go on Rosh Hashanah. The day of Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, they can't go to Yom Tov. They also can't go Yom Kippur. So they could sometimes lose, it could be sometimes a discrepancy of a few days. You have a Rosh Hashanah, you have a Yom Kippur. It depends when Shabbos comes out.
Sometimes you have two Shabbos.
Sometimes you can have two Shabbosim. Yeah. So sometimes you can have a major discrepancy. But every year you have already a difference of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. You're dealing with 2 extra days that they're losing of travel. So there were Jews, communities, who got the Shluchim of Nissen, but they didn't get the Shluchim of Tishrei.
One day's guaranteed.
Right.
Shabbos on Shabbos, so you don't have.
Right.
And Kippur also can-
So you may have lived in that zone, in that area, where Nissen you would have had your Shluchim, Tishrei you wouldn't have your Shluchim. So naturally, what would be the halacha here? We would think, Pesach, you make 1 day. You know when Rosh Chodesh was. Sukkot, you have to make 2 days. That's what we would think. So that means there were many communities where the calendar was schizophrenic. Nissen, 1 day. Pesach, 1 like Eretz Yisrael. Sukkot, They were like their neighbors who lived further, that they made 2 days. So Rabbi Yochanan made an announcement. Kol heicha de matur shluchin nisim v'le matur shluchin tishrei. Liyavdu trei yomi. They have to celebrate 2 days even on Pesach. They heard from the shluchim which day was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. They know when Pesach was. If Adar was 29 days, so they know Pesach is, let's say, on a Sunday. If Adar was 30 days, Pesach is on a Monday. Why are they celebrating 2 days? The answer is Gzeida Nisan not to Tishrei. Rabbi Yochanan said, we have to be very careful with Nisan because of Tishrei. If we're going to allow them to do on Nisan 1 day of Pesach, then what's going to happen is this will become their fixed condition, and they'll do the same thing on Sukkot, even though they didn't have shluchim. And sometimes it's going to be a mistake, and it means that they're celebrating Sukkot the wrong day. Sukkot may have started a day later, but they started a day earlier, and they finished Sukkot a day earlier, or the other way around. Sukkot starts a day earlier, and they're starting a day later. So therefore, because of Tishrei, they didn't want to differentiate in the calendar for communities. This is the way. You're doing Yom Tov 2 days. Sometimes you don't have to do it 2 days, but sometimes you do. So do it always 2 days. This was Rabbi Yochanan's Chiddush. Rashi says, Levdu Trei Yomi. I'm sorry. The Matu Shluchin Nisan. Shebezdin Sholchin L'Goyla Loidia Yom Shekichu. Bezdin sends a message to the Diaspora, to the Goyla, the Jews in exile, to the day, letting them know the day of Rosh Chodesh. V'chol Mashem Yichoylin Leilechim Helchim Ada Pesach. As much as they can walk, they travel till Pesach. V'chein b'tishrei at Sukkos chutz mishabasas v'yamim tovim shloi nitnu lechalal l'shluchim k'detanya b'perkin al kriyasam ata mechalal v'ai ata mechalal al kiyumam. The Gemarah is going to learn out. We'll see the next Amid that you're allowed to be mechalal Shabbos to declare Rosh Chodesh, not to maintain and establish it for other communities. In other words, when it comes to traveling to Bezdin to make Rosh Chodesh to testify you saw the moon, you could desecrate the Shabbos. When it comes to notify, then you can't. Lefichach shluchin nisan magiyim l'makom shein shluchit tishrei magiyim sharei ein yamim tovim beintayim la'akvam. Between Rosh Chodesh Nisan to Svav Nisan there are no holidays. U'betishrei yesh Rosh Hashanah v'yom Kippurim she'ein ha'shluchim helchem by. Rashi of course doesn't mention Shabbos because Shabbos you have a problem Tishrei too. The difference between Nisan and Tishrei is not Shabbos. The difference is the 2 days Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So Rabbi Yochanan said, "Le'yavdu trei yomi v'tavi 2 days of Yom Tov afal pi she'gidu lem ha'shluchim yom kviyasa." So it's a little bit of a funny situation. In fact, this is the time when they were still accepting witnesses and making Rosh Chodesh based on the observation of the new moon. But they were doing 2 days Yom Tov like we do 2 days Yom Tov. It's not so much dissimilar than us. We also know when Pesach is. We don't have a question when Pesach is. We know when Rosh Chodesh is. We still do 2 days of Pesach, not because we don't know. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan was mechadish. That concept existed then. For those communities where they knew when Pesach was, they still made 2 days Pesach because they didn't know when Tishrei is. Gzeir Nisan not to Tishrei.
This is the far places there.
The furthest places, yeah. She'im tanhigam lasas b'nisan yoim echad. If you allow them, if the minig by them is going to be Nisan 1 day, yinagu kein b'tishrei shaloi al pishluch. They will do the same thing Tishrei, not according to Shluchim. They'll say, okay, the Shluchim didn't come, fine, but we know what we're doing. And sometimes they'll make an error. Because Elul may have had a different kviyas, a different calendar than they thought. Zog the Gemarah, why does it say Machriz Rabbi Yochanan? Usually you would say, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is Machriz Rabbi Yochanan. Usually when there's a halacha from Amirayim or Tanaim, Amar. It could be the reason is, Rabbi Yochanan lived in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan didn't live in Bava. So Rabbi Yochanan in his place didn't have all these issues, right? So Rabbi Yochanan was really giving a message to Jews living far away. So that's what he says, Machros Rabbi Yochanan. He announced it. In other words, the concept was, he wasn't saying it in his own base medrash for his Talmud. They didn't have an issue. Rabbi Yochanan was Gadol Amiroi Eretz Yisrael. He was the author of Talmud Yerushalmi, right? But Rabbi Yochanan announced it, that it should go far and wide, that the Jews living far away, they had to hear this psak din. That if they don't have the shluchim of Nisan, they don't have the shluchim of Tishrei on time, they have to make even Nisan 2 days Yom Tov. Possibly. So the Gemarah says a story of Aivu bar Nagori and Reb Chia bar Abba. There were 2 people, Reb Aivu the son of Nagori and Reb Chia the son of Abba. Iklu lahu asra. They arrived, they encountered, they came to a place, the have a matu shluchei Nisan v'le matu shluchei Tishrei, where the messengers for Nisan have arrived, but the messengers of Tishrei usually would not arrive. V'avdi chad yoyma. In this place, they celebrated Pesach 1 day. Why? The shluchim arrived on time. They came before Pesach. They told him when Rosh Chodesh was. Perfect. They knew. V'loi amru lehu v'loi midi. These two sages, Reb YY, the son of Nagari, and Reb Chia, the son of Abba, did not say anything. They let them do it. Shama Reb Yochanan. Reb Yochanan was their Rebbe. Reb YY bar Nagari, Reb Chia bar Abba were students of Reb Yochanan. Reb Yochanan heard about their behavior, that they let it go. V'ikbet. He was upset. Amar lehu, Reb Yochanan said to them, they are his students. Lav amri lechu, have I not told you? Heiche de matu shluche nissen v'lei matu shluche tishrei le'avdu treyoimi gzeire nissen atu tishrei. Have I not told you where the shluchim of Nissen arrive, but the shluchim of Tishrei don't arrive there? They should make 2 days Pesach because we're making an edict of Nissen, for Nissen because we're concerned about Tishrei. And that was the end of the conversation. Rabbi Yochanan was upset at his two students who did not stand up for this halacha. Rashi says, Reb YY v'Reb Chia bar Abba talmidei de Reb Yochanan hayu. They were his students. If they weren't his students, Rabbi Yochanan wouldn't be makbid. But since they were his students, v'shamu mipiv, Rashi says. Two things. They were his students, and they heard it from his mouth. They heard it from his mouth. L'kach hikbit connect. The Gemarah is medayik to tell the story, and to even tell us exactly what Rabbi Yochanan said. Rabbi Yochanan said, did I not tell you? And he said over the whole halacha. In other words, you heard this from my mouth. You heard this from my mouth. You come to a place, and shash still, you see people doing the opposite, and you don't say a word. Rabbi Yochanan said, we come to...
Why didn't they do anything? The reason.
You want to know why taka?
Why Taka they didn't say anything?
Why taka?
They agreed with Rabbi Yochanan, didn't say anything.
Well, listen, there probably would have been an uproar in town. You know, they're saying like, for hundreds of years, right? We're doing Pesach one day,
They were getting lynched.
and suddenly two seders. I mean, there probably would have been an uproar. This was a new halacha. Remember, this is when the halacha came out. It wasn't a din min ha-Torah. It was a din of the Sanhedrin of Bezdin of that generation, of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, who was from the Bezdin of that time, it was his psak. So maybe they were, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that I assumed there would have been an uproar.
I mean, Len is not here, but
The what?
Len is not here, but what is wrong in disagreeing with your teacher if you honestly feel something different?
Okay,
Seems
you're
like
representing him well.
In the name of by omission, it doesn't show that they disagree. They just didn't.
I don't think that they
Right.
disagreed.
It just
If there was a machlokes,
It was
a legitimate machlokes, they would have said, Rebbe, no one agrees with you. They agreed with Rabbi Yochanan. This was the psak. Halacha was established according to the norms of how halacha is established.
It was chiluk.
You take it if there's a chiluk, if there's a vote, whatever you had to do.
Nobody is chiluk anymore.
Right.
So far.
Right, you're right. Huh?
It's not a question that they disagreed, it's a question that they didn't
Yeah, they probably,
stand up.
I'm saying my hunch is that socially it was a difficult thing to do. So they were quiet. On this, Rabbi Yochanan said, "You're my Talmidim, you heard it from my mouth." That's what the Gemarah says, he's medayik. Lav amri lechu, I told this to you. I didn't tell it to Chaim Yankel, you heard it to a generation ago. I told it to you. Huh?
Friday night scholars and residents. Wanted to make the big deal.
They wanted to be invited back. Okay. It's interesting. Rabbi Yochanan's psak is negeya also for another situation, and that's Shavuos. Shavuos, there is no doubt anywhere. Why? Because Shavuos is, you don't need the day in the month. We learned a few times. Shavuos doesn't depend on the day in the month. Shavuos depends on Sfiras HaOmer. The moment you know when the Omer began, you know when Shavuos is. What do I mean you know when Shavuos is? You don't know when Shavuos is, but it's irrelevant when Shavuos is. Because you count 49 days, and then you have day 50. So let's say it's Zion Sivan. Because in Eretz Yisrael they made Nisan 30 days and Iyar 30 days. So it's Zion Sivan, so what?
And if they start their
Let's say Nisan and Iyar were 29 days. So their Shavuos is Hey Sivan. And you're going to make in Bavel 129, 130. So you're doing Shavuos on the wrong day. It's not the wrong day because Shavuos is not based on a calendar. Shavuos is based on Sfiras HaOmer.
but they count wrong.
Why would anybody count wrong?
This came after Pesach.
You just count 49 days. What's the problem?
For
Count
them,
is the
when
count.
they think Pesach is.
Ooh.
When they made the Arabs, that's when they brought
They
the
they
Arabs.
do 2 days. They're going to do 2 days Pesach, so they count them as one.
Yeah.
It's not like they're making a day and then they find a person did it the other day. Their Pesach's wrong now, the count is off because they started a day
Not
later.
off, the count be off. Count is a
So
count.
you're asking, you're saying that, he's saying this. They thought it was Tazayin Nissen. Really, Tazayin Nissen was Tasvav Nissen.
Okay.
In other words, the second day Pesach is really the first day. So Sfiras HaOmer is supposed to be Yud Zayin. So they started Sfiras HaOmer a day early.
What's it supposed
In other words, they started Sfiras HaOmer the first day of Pesach.
This is when it's supposed to be. It's a physical count. There's two reasons to do Sfira.
You can't
What
start
is no
counting
sources?
before
That's not
Pesach.
Right, but he's saying they started to count Tesvav Nissen. They said it was Tazayin. Because the Shluchim arrived, right, right, and they realized that Taka Pesach, they started a day early. The second day Pesach, they made a second Seder, very good. No, the Shluchim came at the end of Nisan. The Shluchim came after Pesach. It's far away, they live far away. And what happened was they found out that they made other 30 days. And therefore Pesach had to start one day later. So they're good because they did 2 days Pesach. But the problem is Sfiras HaOmer, they started on their second day. So they started, so to speak, Tesvav, really Tesvav. By them it was Tazayin. So Sfira is a Chayvas Yachid, but it has to start on a certain day. So you're arguing that what? So they find out that what? That we started Sfira a day early. We started Sfira a day early.
Then you're going to do Shavuos a day early.
Right, but the question is, does the Sfira work? Does that Sfira work?
But we say 50 days, but 50 days
Huh?
sometime.
Does that Sfira work? Or you say, no, all your days were off.
That's how we mocher us.
You didn't start with Macharas HaShabbos. You started what you thought was Macharas HaShabbos. That would be a very interesting question. How it works with Sfiras HaOmer. No, even according to the Psak of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but you still have to start. I can't start on Purim.
He just missed the day a bit.
He's talking over there. You started to Zayin Nissen. You just, but if you start counting Sfiras HaOmer on Purim, I don't make Shavuos 50 days later. You have to be ma'ayin. It's an interesting shaila.
It's B'mayadam, finished, done. It's B'mayadam, finished.
Right,
This is the way
but-
they did it. This is the way they established it.
I see. You're saying loite mitva.
Right.
They have their what's the word? They have the rights to make their own Yom Tif. So this they have the rights to make their own Sfiras HaOmer. They have the rights to make their own Sfiras HaOmer. And even according to Tosfos, you could say, since afilu mutayin, so b'di'evet, their Sfiras HaOmer is not disqualified. So you could say a strong svara, it's like a wrong. And they'll continue a wrong count, because they had a different design, and it's talking about b'di'evet. According to the Ritva L'chatchila, according to Tosfos, b'di'evet. It would seem that would be a starka svara. Regardless, any way we want to learn about their svira, by the time the end of Nisan comes, they know when Pesach was announced. So they know when everyone is counting Sfiras HaOmer. So they know when the 49 days, so they count 49 days from the beginning of Sfira. I'm not now getting into the question if they're allowed to continue counting. Let's say they are, or let's say they're not. But they know when the Jews are counting Sfiras HaOmer, count 49 days, and I don't care when Rosh Chodesh Iyar and when Rosh Chodesh Sivan is. You know why? Because Shavuos is not dependent on that. Shavuos is dependent on a 49-day count. And even when you're in Babylonia, you could count 49 days. No difference when Rosh Chodesh is. It's a fact. And then you know when Shavuos is. You know when Shavuos is. So l'chayre Shavuos, there should have never been 2 days Yom Tov. And yet we do 2 days Shavuos. What's the answer? The answer is Shaloi Lachlik. The Rambam's Lashon Hilchos Gad Shaloi Lachlik b'Mayadus. Chazal said, do not distinguish between holidays. Like Rabbi Yochanan says, Gemarah Nisan after Tishrei. Don't make Pesach 2 days, Sukkot 2 days, and Shavuos 1 day. In Eretz Yisrael, everything is 1 day. Great, Shavuos, Sukkot, Pesach. In Chutz La'aretz, even though Shavuos, you didn't need to make 2 days, ever. It's a very interesting idea. Shavuos, you never needed to make 2 days, ever. Because by the time Shavuos was around the corner, you already knew when Sfira began, and that's it you need to know for Shavuos. I don't care if Shavuos is the 5th of Sivan, the 6th of Sivan, the 7th of Sivan. The main thing is day 50 of Sfiras HaOmer. Nonetheless, Rabbi Yochanan's Gemarah became extremely practical in the sense of Shavuos. That Shavuos was also celebrated as 2 days, you understand? Not to make any distinction.
It's good that you don't
There's a Chassam Sofer, I once saw, he says that Shavuos, Therefore, the Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius of Shavuos is much more stringent than the Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius of Pesach and Sukkot. Because over there it started as a Geder Suffolk, and Shavuos is a Geder Vade. You know, the second day of Pesach and Sukkot, the Chachamim said, do it because you don't know, right? Because you don't know, do it. By Shavuos, they said, you do know. But it's like an official takon of certainty.
I mean, it's 100% not.
Okay.
It's 100% not.
No, it's a real thing.
What?
It's a real midah.
No, the truth is, even Pesach's Yom Tov Sheni is only midrabanan, because B'nat Torah, you could go achir rabbim lahatis.
Right.
You could follow the majority. So let's say Tishrei, the Roiv was Elul was 29 days. Nisan may be lav dafka. Nisan wasn't an Inyan of Roiv. So therefore, it would be a suffix B'nat Torah. Zog the Gemarah weiter.
It's good that you not make the Gzerah.
Rava,
It's good that you not make the Gzerah for Yom Kippur.
Oh yeah, in Kippur they didn't make the Gzeda. You mean 2 days? They couldn't. They couldn't.
It's good they didn't do it.
They couldn't. It's at pikuach nefesh. You can't make people fast 48 hours.
Yeah, that's it. It's not.
It's a 48-hour fast.
She'ein ha'olam yachol lamod ba.
It's not only ein revat tzibur yichel lamed ba. It's much worse than that. It's putting people.
This is not healthy.
It's a suffix of pikuach nefesh. Yeah, yeah. But soon now we have a story with Rava. Exactly what you're saying. Rava have a ragel dav Yosef betanis trei yomi. Rava lived in Babylonia. He had a minig. He would fast on Yom Kippur 2 consecutive days. Understand what that means? A night and a day, and then he wouldn't go eat. He would continue Yom Kippur for a second day. You know how that feels? You finish Ne'ilah, you finish Ma'ariv, Anu Kol Nidrei. Back into Yom Kippur. 2 days. Why? Rava was always afraid that Bezdin made Elul not 29 days, but 30 days, and Yom Kippur is a day later. So therefore, Yud Tishrei and Yud Aleph Tishrei for him was Yom Kippur. Nobody else did it. This was, of course, a stringency of Rava. Why? Because even before there was a calendar. When there's a calendar, yeah, for sure you don't have to do Yom Kippur 2 days. The whole reason we're doing anything 2 days is Minhag Avosenu B'Yadeinu. But we know when Yom Kippur is. Even when there was no calendar, and Yom Kippur may have been 11 Tishrei, and we see what happened with Levi, right? That they got Yom Kippur wrong, or semi-wrong, as we explained. Rava, because of that, did Yom Kippur 2 days every year, just to be chayshish that maybe Bezdin made Elul an extra day.
Which is very interesting in Rava, because there's a Pischei Tshuva I remember seeing years ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about Bittul. I think this Lashon was Oyser Anoshim. She'ein Semcha Al Bittul, V'Chimir Al Atzma. He says, Harry Ein Koifrim.
Talk to me. To him.
The Torah tells you it's Bittul.
Bittul Chametz, you mean? Bittul Chametz.
Bittul.
Oh. Pischei Tshuva?
Chicken Tshuva, Pischei Tshuva. So
In your Yudea.
Tarovas, yeah. So he why? Because the Torah says Bittul works. You go be a Basar Roiv. That's also Basar Roiv, right? But Rava decides, you know what? The Torah says Acharav Mahates. That's for everybody else, not for me. That's the whole Hasaga doesn't make sense in Rava.
Right.
And what did you do with mitzvah Diyana?
He did whatever he did.
Tefillin with.
You want to know about tefillin?
Yeah. Why did you not put on tefillin?
If he's himself and on everybody else, then.
He wasn't machman everybody else, of course
Right,
not.
he's machman only on himself and on everybody else. Then
You can't do it.
Problem on.
But he's going connected the Torah.
It's just
He
like,
can't
yeah.
go connected the Torah to be machman on himself.
Just as he's fasting. Maybe he's fasting.
That's why
He's just fasting. He's not doing anything.
Could be legabe fasting, yeah. Could be legabe fasting. Mitzadach.
Because that's right. You knew the whole thing.
Some Mishal Yom Mechaper, especially L'Shavim, he could have done tshuva also.
Right. You knew him and not doing anything wrong with
The
it.
tshuva that Rav had to do, he could have done on Yom Kippur also, the second Yom Kippur also. Generally, the Chachamim themselves weren't chayshish. Legabe Yom Kippur, just like they did Sukkos. Again, because of the sakana to fast 2 days. To make 2 days Sukkos is not a big deal. To make 2 days Yom Kippur is quite a serious thing. In our days, where we have a calendar, the only reason we make 2 days is because minhag avosenu b'yadeinu, because tradition of our forefathers. Certainly, there's no need today to make a second day Yom Kippur. If you're going to say, oh, I'm going to fast a second day Yom Kippur today, it's ridiculous. The whole reason we're making 2 days is minhag avosenu b'yadeinu. Our fathers didn't fast 2 days Yom Kippur, right? So therefore, that would not be an issue today. So this was a chumrah Rava made, and the Gemarah says he was rewarded. What's haste rewarded? Zimna Chada, one time, Ishtakach Kavasei. It happened that way. One time it happened that way. That year he found out Yom Kippur was off by a day in Bavel. In other words, he was quite grateful to himself for fasting that extra day. Zimna Chada, it happened once. It happened once that all of his concerns came true.
Could have been the same time. Everything could, all these mice
Could be.
happened. Could be the same mice.
With Levi.
How do you know?
Your lady showed up.
No, it's possible.
Could be, yeah. If you have Rabbeinu Hananel on the left side, you see Rabbeinu Hananel, that single column, all the way on the left, right? So if you'll see in the middle of the page, the line starts Magiyin Behen, Mamash in the middle of Rabbeinu Hananel, like in middle, smack in the middle of the long Rabbeinu Hananel. The line starts Magiyin Ben. He says, Rabbe, not Rave, Rabbe, Haver Rogil. You'll soon see the significance. Haver Rogil Yosef Betanisset Reyoimi. Zimne Chade Ishtakach Kavasei. Ki Ibru Leila Elul V'hoya Yom Kippur Yud Aleph B'Tishrei. Yom Kippur was really day 11. The Hava Machmir Anafshe. Rabbeinu Hananel is saying this was a Chumrah. V'Noket Treyoime Umilse Yiser Sa'avad V'Loi Choyvuhu Alav Shalahoya Leilachosh. He was doing an extra deed that was not obligated because he didn't have to be afraid. V'im chashash, and the fact that he was afraid, mida yiser sa'asa. This was an extra mida that he did, v'lo shibach ba. No, this was not, Rabbeinu Hananel is just making it very clear that this was a special extra chumrah that Rava did. It was not something that he was mukhrich to do. Even though, Taka, 1 year it turned out that things happened the way he was afraid they're going to happen. So, what does the Rabbeinu Hananel mean, these words, v'loi shibach ba?
It wasn't seen as praiseworthy.
It's not that the Gemarah is trying to praise him. It's not that the Gemarah is trying to tell you, try to copy him. That's what Rabbeinu Hananel. It's not that the Gemarah is trying to praise Rava for the Chumrah. The Gemarah is telling you a story. It's bringing out the greatness of Rava, but it's not like saying that this is something people have to emulate. They're just telling you what Rava.
This is for professionals.
Right.
When he says Ishtakach Kavasei,
Ishtakach Kavasei.
meaning what? The calendar, the day was 1 day off, so everybody
No.
else in Baba,
No.
they didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't.
They didn't
Yom
do anything
Kippur.
wrong,
It wasn't-
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't Yom Kippur that day.
For them it wasn't.
For nobody was in that area.
You're right,
They
but
did
according to
it
halacha, they were allowed to
was.
fast that day. They did the best they could. Yom Kippur is no din of 2 days. They did the best they can. They took it. Yeah.
No, there's no chumrah. The only chumrah
Yeah.
is, he said, there's minig said to be a minig with fast. He said there is a fast of 2 days from Kippur.
Really? Why
2 days
mitzad?
off.
I guess it's make sense. There's no
Maybe minig of a saying of him was Rava.
Doesn't matter when the
mishpachas Rava.
Hanukkah was just
That says we learned before Daf Yud Ches, it's Eli.
It's
Hanukkah
it's
is
about
literally
it.
2 days off.
Abaya and Rava, there's 2 cases, Rabba or Rava.
Right.
Abaya lived 60 years and the Gemara says Rava lived 40 years. Daf Yud Ches we learned, right?
He was, how old was he when he was living?
1 gear says Rabba, 2 gears says in Gemara, Rava or Rabba, Taisvus brings. There's a very interesting question here. The Gemara says in Masechta Tainis, Daf Chafalev, that Rava used to be Mekabel Shalom and Mesifta Dirakia every Erev Yom Kippur. Every Erev Yom Kippur he would get greetings from heaven. That's what the Gemara says in Masechta Tainis. If that's the case, in heaven they knew when Yom Kippur is. They have shluchim there. So l'chayre he knew when Yom Kippur is. What's the problem? According to Rabbeinu Hananel, it's not a shaila, it's going to Rabba. Not Rava. You saw Rabbeinu Hananel says Rabba, so it's not a problem. But mitzad Rava, huh?
It didn't help. It didn't help prove your chiyah because it was some measures you get. That didn't help.
So maybe that's why he fasted the next day, because he figured that out, but it didn't change the fact
Right.
of when it
If
was.
everybody was wrong. it'd still
So
be
there's a
wrong.
few
It's still
answers. So
right.
they bring for few answers. Sifsei Chachamim says that mitzad his humility, he did this. He concealed his greatness from people. The Aruch LaNer says that the reason he got this schar to get greeted out of Yom Kippur is because he did Yom Kippur 2 days. That's why he got it. And the Sfas Emes says, you don't know that he didn't get messages other days. Could be he got messages other days. He couldn't know for sure that it's Mitzad Erev Yom Kippur. And so Mela, that's why he fasted 2 days. I'll call upon him. It's an interesting horror.
It didn't say Erev Yom Kippur.
Huh? What do you say?
I asked him, they didn't say I get Erev Yom Kippur.
So an interesting svara I saw. This is quite radical. The Pnei Yitzchak says the Rava said, you know what? Maybe Bezdin made a mistake. They made Rosh Chodesh the wrong day. Okay, Min Hashamayim they agree with Bezdin because Afilu Mutayin. But I'm going to still do 2 days. Min Hashamayim they agree with Bezdin. They made a mistake. But I'm still going to do Yom Kippur 2 days. Even though in heaven they accepted it as Yom Kippur.
Well, they had to accept this Yom Kippur in heaven. No matter what,
Of course. What was what publicized?
Then he fasted 2 days if he was a special person on the scene.
The Gemarah says sometimes think that someone was not
Stop. Another interesting ha'ara is the Rambam writes in Hilchas Kiddush HaChodesh. The Rambam writes that Kiddush HaChodesh al pi ha're'iyah, based on observation, continued till the time of Abaya and Rava. Does the Rambam mean till the time of Abaya and Rava? Does the Rambam mean including the time of Abaya and Rava? This Gemarah, you have a very strong proof. If there was a calendar, why is Rava doing 2 days Yom Kippur? The calendar, there's no re'iyah. There's no Bezdin doing it. It's all a calendar. What are you making 2 days Yom Kippur for? Minig Avosenu b'yadeinu you don't have on Yom Kippur. The reason Rava is making Yom Kippur is because there's no calendar. And the Gemarah says one time a taka happened that Elul was postponed an extra day. That wouldn't happen in a calendar. Nobody decides after Yom Kippur, oh, Elul is an extra day. Doesn't work. The Chulcha, a very strong raya from this Gemarah that in the days of Rava, there was still a Sanhedrin accepting witnesses. This would be a great source of the Rambam statement. And indeed, according to many, we have from Reb Haigon that the calendar was established in the year Dalet Alafim Kuf Yud Ches, 4,118 since creation, and the secular calendar would be 358 after the Common Era. That means till 300. The Churban Beis Hamikdash was in the year 70 after the Common Era. So you go from 70 to 170 is 100 years, 270 is 200 years, 358 is almost 300 years. 300 years minus 12 years, almost 288 years after the Churban, still continued Kiddush HaChodesh al pi ha're'iyah, and that was indeed L'erech the time of Abaya and Rava. But here we see clearly that by Rava there was still Kiddush HaChodesh al pi ha're'iyah.
The Sanhedrin was in Yavna. Where was the Sanhedrin?
Well, it traveled to many places. You had Yavne, you had Usha, you had Sipori. I mean,
Where did it end up? Was the last?
Lud. I don't know where it was then. Okay, Zog the Gemarah weiter. Fascinating story. Rev Nachman Yosef betanisse kula yom de Kippur. Rev Nachman is sitting in a fasting a whole day of Yom Kippur. When we're in Bavel, according to their cheshbon, L'urta at night, before he went to eat, at the end of davening, Asahu Gavra, a fellow came, Amalei, and he tells him, L'macher yomer Rabba b'ma'arava. Tomorrow is the great day of Yom Kippur in Eretz Yisrael because Elul was 30 days. Now Reb Nachman and Rava lived in the same time. So it could be this is the same time. You don't have to make two separate stories here. The Sfas Emes says it could be the same story like you said. The same time when that happened with Rava, this man comes to Reb Nachman and says, you have a wrong Yom Kippur. What? Yeah. Amalei, Reb Nachman says, Mehecha'at, where are you from? Amalei, he says, Midamaharya, the place called Damaharya. Amalei, you come from the right place. Dam Tehei Acharisai. Damaharya sounds like blood shall be his end, talking about himself. Basically, you want me to die. You're going to cause me to die. Because by fasting 2 days, it's going to put my life in danger. Kari Alei Reb Nachman said about this person, we say in Eicha, Kalim Hoyu Roitfeinu. There's a pasuk in Eicha Perik Daled, Kalim Hoyu Ratfeinu Min Nishrei Shamayim. Those who chased us, our enemies, were lighter than the eagles of heaven. Pursuing the Jews was so easy. Al Haharim Dlakunu Bamidbar Arvulanu. They pursued us on the mountains and they ambushed us in the desert. So Reb Nachman said on this man, Kalim Hoyu Ratfeinu. Those who pursue us have it easy. In other words, this person was believed.
He got here quickly.
Huh?
Maybe he got here so quickly.
He got it quickly, he's saying. Kalim Reitfeinu, already by Yom Kippur, he already knew the situation.
I don't understand if it's Mikoach Nefesh on Yom Kippur. What's the problem? It's not from the Shlosh Chavuras. What's the big deal? Let him eat. Worried about it. Let him eat.
You're talking about Rav Nachman.
No, it's a big difference between Nachman. The Torah tells you how many do. This is where you have to. Is Yagva Yavra? This is not Yagva Yavra. No Yagva Yavra eating Yom Kippur.
He was a Lubavitch.
Right.
You go to the right.
Could be.
You can eat every Yom Kippur to be a Sagoyo.
Yeah. Could be, in other words, it was Liboy Noikfa. He wasn't sure it's Pikuach Nefesh. If he was sure it's Pikuach Nefesh, then fakert.
This is a pretty tough lesson here.
In other words, you're really putting me in a difficult situation. Damahaya, by telling him, what was Reb Nachman Makbid on him? Yeah, let's see Rashi.
It doesn't say what Nachman did.
Yasib b'tanis trei yomim leilo seim shemi rubeznes achedush reim achadas shalanu wasiri shalanu. That's Rav Damte Acharisei. Hareini meisal yadcha. I might die as a result of you. Shetaskikeni lisanas beis yamim beis leilas.
Hareini doesn't mean I might.
I'm going to die.
That's what it says.
I'm going to die.
Maybe he's being machar.
Because you're making me fast 2 days and 2 nights. Damte Acharisei netrukin shel damaharya. Damaharya is Damte Acharisei. That's what Reb Nachman says.
If he didn't, we would know about it. I would tell you.
Yeah, what should have this man done? I mean, he could have waited till Reb Nachman ate a little bit, right?
Then he would come with a kinda, oh, what you doing to me?
Right. It's an interesting story.
It doesn't say what Nachman said.
Why didn't ask him if
Rashi
it's
says,
Your
Shaykh Leidus?
intention
Huh?
to make me fast.
Why didn't ask him if he's Shaykh
I can't
Leidus?
do it because
So you have to understand it. L'chayra, the pshat is,
Tell the fact.
the Sifsei Chachamim says Reb Nachman was upset that he told him before he ate something. He would have been happy to fast the second day, but he needed to eat something in between, and he told him before he ate. Now l'chayra, you should say, you should have been happy. This man saved him from sin. L'chayra, you should have been happy. He told you not to eat on the real Yom Kippur. The answer, of course, is, if he would have not said this, Reb Nachman would have eaten that night the heter. It would have been an isser. Why? Because the calendar that the Bnei Hagoyla make for themselves is the real calendar, as long as they don't have Eidus from Eretz Yisrael. We learned before the Shittas HaRitva, right? As long as you don't have an Eid from Eretz Yisrael, your calendar is the genuine calendar. And even according to the Shitta of Tosfos, if he would have finished the fast till the end, right? B'diyevet, right? It would have been his Yom Kippur. Atem afilu mutayin, even if it was a mistake, and he would have not been mechuyev to make a second Yom Kippur, because b'diyevet he did it already, if he finished his fast. So any way you learn it, if Reb Nachman would have finished his fast, either lechatchil or b'diyevet, he doesn't have to do a second Yom Kippur. That's why he didn't celebrate the fact that this man came and saved him from such a serious issue.
Tell him an hour earlier. You could be mevatel his first Yom Kippur, eat it on Yom Kippur.
You can't do that.
An hour later.
How's he going to be involved first if everybody's already doing it?
You mean that
Interesting.
he-
You're saying if he would have come an hour earlier, so he would have been mevatel his first Yom Kippur with everybody else, have everybody eat, and then do a new Yom Kippur. Interesting.
Did it come exactly at that junction?
But probably he came that.
It says that he sat the Gemarah, it says that he sat the whole day, and the Urta makes
Huh?
it sound like it was.
There
Gemara
was these
Russian
guys
sounds like
coming
it came
like
right.
No,
at
Reb
the
Nachman sat all day.
Right, right. I'm saying
Yeah.
it sounds like
and they
was
say
funny,
it, they
right.
get screamed at.
Reb Nachman sat all day.
And at night, in the evening,
Right, that's what it's saying.
they wrote it.
Lately said it.
What do you do?
And what he said didn't have anything.
Don't travel on Yom Kippur. Even there. Don't be a bearer of news like this.
But it's weird that this guy came from Eretz Yisrael and the Shluchim did not. The shluchim they're traveling
He
for
must
that.
have heard. He must have heard Mekudesh or something. Otherwise, he couldn't have been.
Although he can.
No, he knew. Obviously, he knew. He wasn't making up a story.
But it's
but couldn't be.
it's with
made.
these people they can do it, but the shluchim they're not arrived. It's,
He's saying Levi wasn't made because he
he was a shliach.
He didn't hear Mekudesh. His mashma, this guy did hear Mekudesh.
Yeah, because he said if not, it's not.
Unless he, right? Otherwise, you're not going to tell him.
Yeah, he said, this was the shliach. This was the
Maybe this
shliach.
was the shliach. But we call him.
And they left over here.
But if not, you don't accept it.
Let's say who got rid of
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was thinking that.
It's too late.
I don't know if he was saying
They
that over
want to
column under its fate.
Couldn't be Makabel
They
Eidos
can
for
make
the
it, but the
Yard.
shluchim
We don't accept the shluchos.
No, I understand.
I want to just read you the psak of the Ramah here.
That's a fact. We said, look, if we will not hear it. We said,
Used to
Levi
have a
will
Mishnah
not
Berurah,
hear
you
it.
know?
But for him,
Again, if you can even
What's
say
that
it's
Mishnah
just
Berurah? Which
three stories,
volume?
the same
You see
as
that
the
one?
same.
I don't believe it because here
Is it him
he's
Kippur?
accepting the shlichus.
No, it's different people accepting different things. Whoever accepts
Let me see if I can bring up the Ramah
said
here.
he fasted 2 days every year.
How come they accept his shlichus if he did not hear Mekudesh? And if he did hear Mekudesh,
What? You learn a very good lesson.
What's the lesson?
The lesson is,
Why they accepted him?
Yeah.
You
Why
mean he
they
didn't
did
hear Mekudesh?
Yeah.
how do you know he didn't hear the Kiddush?
Because if he did, the shluchim also will arrive.
He was the shliach. Not on Sunday, one
They
guy.
don't say this is a shliach. They will say he's a shliach. Oh, Gavra. Just he
That's
came.
not what
He,
happened. They didn't want to, maybe he came in the
I don't know that he didn't hear Mekudesh, number one. Number two, maybe Reb Nachman was just being machmer for himself. Levi announced it to the whole Kehillah, right? Maybe Reb Nachman just announced it. Reb Nachman was just being machmer on himself, just like Rava. Let's say he didn't hear Mekudesh. It was just a personal chumrah of Reb Nachman, just like Rava. It wasn't mechuyev to fast, but he wanted to. Reb Nachman for himself felt that he has to fast, and that's why he felt upset, because he felt it's going to be really...
You hire a row in the contract, say if you find out that you keep those 2 days, please keep it to yourself.
I just want to read Stam, a psak of the Ramah. Shulchan Aruch Eirech Chaim, Hilchasim Kippur Siman Tov Reish Chav Daled. So the Ramah says you eat and you celebrate Mitzvah Yom Kippur because it's Ksas Yom Tif. V'yesh machmirim lasses shnei yamim Yom Kippur. That's what he said from the Ribbon. There are those who are machmer to make 2 days Yom Kippur. And I guess this, it doesn't say, but I guess the svara would be because originally there were those who were machmer. It's mineg aveseinu biyadenu of those who were machmer, even though we don't have a question when Yom Kippur is. V'yesh lo zehatorah. V'yesh lo zehatorah.
No problem.
Okay.
I'm stopped.
But then the Ramah says, "Ve'ein linoig b'chum rezum mishum deyesh lachush sheyavel l'dei sakana from the Erzeru." One should not do this chumrah because you have a chashash that it's going to come for a sakana. That's the psak of one of the Rishonim Erzeru. No, it doesn't even mention.
They don't have there was no suffix there.
Yeah, the Ramah says yesh machmirim and he paskins not to do it.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.